Appreciate your points. Thanks very much for joining us. Nigel Kirhan joining us there from the Social Market Foundation. Let's quickly move on. The brewing giant SABMiller has reported a rise in annual profit. It made just under $6.5 billion. That's before tax and other one-off items in the year up until March. It's up around 1% on the year before. SAB owns more than 200 beer brands and operates in over 75 countries. Growth continues to be strong in the emerging markets like the likes of Africa and Latin America. However, profits have been hit by a sharp decline in the strength of many emerging market currencies. But despite these challenges, margins continue to grow at the company. Earlier, the company's finance director, Jamie Wilson, explained why that was. Listen to this.
It's a combination of things. I mean, clearly our revenue is growing, and partly that's as a result of growth in volumes, but it's also a result of mix changes in a number of markets, which obviously allows us to sell more premium brands in a number of our territories, which is positive for margin. But against that, we also have very strong cost control, and we've been able to find a few more efficiencies during the year, which has helped us expand the margin to 90 basis points on an organic constant currency basis.
It's not fair at this time of the morning. Makes you thirsty, doesn't it? Sonal Shandeh is head of food and drink research at Business Monitor International and joins us. Sonal, great to have you in the studio. So let's get straight into it. Pretty much the same old story. You know, as we slow down buying drinks in the developed markets, the emerging markets are holding up the fort. But SABMiller has some interesting stories, movements going on in China and Africa. Start with China.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. If you look at SABMiller, traditionally we've looked at Africa and Latin America. Those have been the two growth regions. I think China is becoming increasingly interesting because SABMiller is the biggest company there out of the big brewers in terms of market share. And what's been interesting in the last few quarters is that their margins have been increasing. They've been growing. Traditionally, they've had a large presence in terms of sales, but the contribution to earnings hasn't been as strong. I think the interesting thing here is that traditionally we've looked at China, we've said, you know, it's fantastic for global spirits companies, there's been a lot of premiumization, but in the last 6 months or so, the government's clamped down on a lot of this conspicuous consumption, so a lot of the big spirits
and a lot of corruption sort of thing,
exactly.
Gift giving. So basically the Chinese are buying perhaps less in the high-end spirits, the whiskies, the scotches. Yeah. And they're turning to beer.
Precisely. So okay. Beer is doing a lot better now. I think there's so much more that a company like SABMiller can do in China going forward.
And in Africa, if we switch gears here, SABMiller doing something different, I believe, than some of its competitors. Explain that.
Precisely. I think Africa is a particularly interesting one for them because they're originally from South Africa. What's really interesting about the Africa business is that they've been pioneering low-cost beer. So this has primarily taken place in East Africa, the likes of Tanzania and Uganda. So what they're trying to do here is capture a lot of the market which consumes illicit homebrew. Got an interesting stat. I think the average per capita consumption of commercial beer in sub-Saharan Africa is about 8 litres. Globally, it's about 35 litres. Okay. That doesn't look at the fact that a lot of African countries actually consume a lot more. It's just that they don't consume commercial beer.
So there's certainly room for growth. Let me just touch on this currency issue because it's a bit of a problem. We had Burberry yesterday, I should say. Same old story here again. So these British global companies doing business all around the world, dealing in different currencies. But when you see the currencies that they're dealing in fall in value, they bring this money back to the UK and they've got to convert it back to British pounds. But the British pound is going up. So they lose out, right?
Massive problem for a lot of global FMCG companies, SABMiller included. As you mentioned, there are more than 70 countries. That's taken place, I guess, over the last year with a lot of emerging market currencies selling off. There isn't too much they can do. They can hedge, but it's very difficult to contain this. So this is, you know, you take growth when you go into emerging markets, but then you also have risks when it comes to FX, and we've seen that in the last year. So it's a massive problem for them.
Yeah, as you say, not much real, well, maybe hedging, but not much they can do. Anyway, we'll keep our eyes, as you will, on SABMiller going forward. We appreciate your time. Sonal Shandeh joining me there in the studio. Guy, got to go. Follow me on Twitter. Tweet me at BBC Aaron. Follow me. I'll follow you back. Sport Today coming up next. Bye-bye.